the cold, sterile laboratories of Nuke City 12, the definition of life had undergone a fundamental shift. Under the hum of the magnetic harvest spire, the distinction between the organic and the synthetic had blurred into a single, measurable reality: the Netbium integration. During the Subartramer era, where the world's magnetic pulse was the only remaining currency, Netbium had evolved from a simple plant hybrid catalyst into a sophisticated intermediate for animal tissues. It was no longer just a substance, it was a completer, a molecular bridge that stood between functional existence and biological decay. Within the pressurized glass of a medical vat, a human heart, extracted for systemic calibration, lay suspended in a pool of magnetic pus. The liquid, a viscous byproduct of the harvest towers, shimmered with a dull iridescent gray, conducting the magnetic lament directly into the weakening muscle. To the naked eye, the heart was pale, its rhythmic contraction faltering as it suffered from a critical loss of cell density. The records of the era had predicted this. As the world's magnetic shield thinned, the rate of cellular apoptosis had accelerated, leaving organs unable to sustain the internal pressure of the body's own bioelectric field. An oscilloscope nearby monitored the heart's electrical resistance, its green line tracing erratic, jagged spikes that signaled impending necrosis. Suddenly, the input shifted. A silver-hued cloud of Netbium molecules was injected into the vat through a high-precision inductor. There was no sound, only the cold blue flicker of an interface recording the event in real time. The Netbium did not merely float like a passive agent. It acted with an algorithmic precision, a data-driven swarm responding to the organ's failing frequency. Sensing the microscopic voids where healthy myocytes had withered away, the smart molecules began to align themselves along the remaining carbon chains. They did not replace the dead cells. Instead, they occupied the gaps, weaving a metallic organic lattice that reinforced the weakening walls of the chambers. As the integration took hold, the heart's color shifted from a deathly pale to a dull, matte crimson, threaded with silver veins of Netbium. On the monitor, the cell density graph, which had been plummeting towards the red line of systemic failure, began to flatten and stabilize. The heart beat again, but it was no longer a purely biological rhythm. It was a pulse induced by the ambient magnetic flux, a heartbeat calibrated to the very towers that powered the city. In the shadowed industrial corridors of Nuke City 12, the presence of Netbium in the bloodstream had evolved from a clinical luxury into an essential biological buffer. Within the high-voltage environment of the electrical mines, workers were subjected to constant ionic bombardment, leading to localized, silent necrosis. In these zones, the Netbium within the system functioned as an autonomous monitoring network, detecting the precise moment when the tissue's impedance crossed the threshold of critical failure. These molecules operated as microscopic capacitors, attuned to the bioelectric potential of the host. They did not rely on neurological pain signals, which were often dampened by the ambient magnetic roar of the city. Instead, they analyzed cellular density through a continuous loop of pulse width modulation. When a sector of tissue began to lose its structural integrity, the Netbium initiated a rapid exothermic multiplication phase. By drawing upon the host's metabolic energy and harvesting the surplus flux from the ambient magnetic field, governed by the same Faraday principles as the harvest towers, the molecules began to replicate. This was not biological mitosis, but a process of rapid molecular crystallization. The resulting scaffolding was an intricate semiconductive mesh that interlaced with the dying organic fibers. To an external observer, this integration was visible only through thermal scanners as a concentrated heat signature at the site of repair, where the netbium fused with the remaining carbon chains. This was no miraculous healing. It was a cold, empirical replacement. The hybrid tissue formed was a composite structure. The fragile original cells were now encased in a resilient silver-gray netbium matrix. Even as the biological components reached their limit of decay, the netbium clusters ensured that the organ's measurable output, its tensile strength and conductive capacity, remained within the operational parameters required to survive the city's harsh energy quotas. The most profound integration occurred at the neural level, where the boundary between thought and signal reached its absolute limit. In the high-voltage sectors of Nook City 12, where intense magnetic surges threatened to disrupt the delicate synaptic architecture of the technicians, netbium acted as a strategic surge protector for the brain. It was a molecular shield deployed across the blood-brain barrier, functioning as a real-time filter for cognitive stability. As neurons frayed under the persistent pressure of the environmental magnetic load, their ability to maintain a stable firing threshold diminished. In response, netbium molecules began to populate the synaptic gaps. They functioned as biological relays, bridging the voids left by failing neurotransmitters. This was the final synthesis, a state where the continuity of human consciousness was no longer dependent on biological firing patterns alone, but on a hybrid frequency maintained by the netbium lattice. The individual was no longer just a biological entity. They became a calibrated signal source within the city's greater grid. In the archives of the era, the question of identity was systematically discarded. When an organ, or a brain, reached a threshold where 40% of its density was netbium, was it still part of the original organism? In Nook City 12, such a question was considered unscientific noise. Philosophical inquiries were irrelevant compared to functional output. The data was absolute. The heart still pumped at the required BPM. The lungs sustained the necessary oxygen to hydrogen ratio, and the technician's neural pathways remained conductive enough to monitor the spires. The netbium did not seek to save life in any emotional or spiritual sense. It sought only to maintain the system's operational integrity. As long as the cell density was sufficient to carry a stable charge, the netbium would continue its silent replication, weaving a new, durable history into the very marrow of the survivors. It replaced the fragility of the flesh with the unwavering reliability of the magnet, ensuring that even as the humanity of the technician withered, their utility to the city remained perfectly calibrated. The success of the netbium integration remained directly proportional to the available energy levels managed by the city's quotas. Without the energy harvested by the copper ribs through the Faraday effect, the molecules lose their ability to replicate, leading to what is known as the systematic fragmentation of the flesh. In Nook City 12, to be alive is to be calibrated. To be healthy is to be integrated.